Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Monday to you. The tropics are extremely busy, and I'm going to be spending the majority of my video talking about them. If you're joining me for the first time, I'm a meteorologist in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. I've started my YouTube channel back in December, and my goal is to talk about some more extreme weather that we're seeing in the U.S. and the tropics, and maybe even worldwide if there's anything major going on that needs to be addressed. But my goal today is going to be talking about what's left of Hilary, which has been battering California and Nevada and Arizona with incredible amounts of rain and some strong winds yesterday. And then we're going to talk about no less than 5 Atlantic threats. Things have very quickly gotten busy in the Atlantic, and we do have 2 areas that are most of concern, one across South Texas, Northeast Mexico, and the other across Hispaniola. So let's take a look at the screen here, and I will show you visually what's going on in the Atlantic. We do have Tropical Storm Emily, which is not going to be a threat to land. Tropical Storm Franklin, which is a threat here in the next couple of days to Hispaniola. Newly formed and short-lived Tropical Storm Gert, and then potentially 2 more tropical storms. I think the one in the Gulf is going to be hitting Texas tomorrow morning as Tropical Storm Harold. And then one will develop west of the Cape Verdes here in a couple of days. That would be Tropical Storm Idalia. So the tropics are going wild, and very quickly, that warm water that we've been talking about all Atlantic season is certainly there, causing storms to very quickly spin up, but nothing extremely powerful, fortunately, due to the fact that this is an El Nino. We do have stronger wind shear. So we've got a lot of names being taken up on the map, but nothing that is really rapidly intensifying for the time being. So things could certainly be worse, but nonetheless, the fact that the Atlantic is going to have more named storms than the Pacific here in a couple more days means that this Atlantic season means business. So we are officially up to Gert. That is the 8th named storm. I think she's short for Gertrude, a German name. And we've actually had another unnamed storm. So we've already had 9 tropical storms here, with the peak of the season being September 10th. Now, I think the next month is going to be extremely busy, and then the second half of the season is actually going to be a little bit quieter than the first half. My forecast was for 17 named storms. We'll probably be up to 11 here by the time we get to next week. So I may be underdone on my forecast. However, doesn't really change much of the philosophy here. I mean, things will happen for sure. Now, this is Dodger Stadium yesterday, and you can see some of the incredible flooding we're seeing in Southern California. And this isn't even quite as bad as some areas east of the mountains that are dealing with washed out roads like Interstate 10 in the Palm Springs area, or some of the canyons, which are seeing some extreme amounts of flooding right now. And my thoughts and prayers are with everybody in Southern California. I realize there's some of you that have been chiming in thinking this is not a big deal, that I'm hyping it up, that I'm causing panic. But then you go to places that are getting hit very hard, and those people are just kind of in despair right now. So I realize we can't have it both ways. Just know that we've been talking about it. We've been warning of this, and it's a rare event, but fortunately things should be improving for the most part here in the next couple of days. Here's what's left of Hilary. Still got tropical storm winds with it here in the higher elevations here of central and southern Cal and into southwestern Nevada. Losing its tropical characteristics. It's now a post-tropical cyclone, but the first tropical storm to make landfall in California since the 1930s. And in addition, we had a 5.0 magnitude earthquake yesterday on top of it. So if you're in California, you're probably ready for some relief here after this insane storm. Well, fortunately, we're going to get some of that here in the coming days. You can see the actual center of the storm, or what's left of it's now moved into Nevada, and will be dying off this morning as it gets towards Oregon. Pretty crazy that we're showing a map from the Hurricane Center of a named storm in Nevada, but that is just kind of how things have gone this year. And we are still dealing with some tropical storm winds in this area, but they are going to be dying off as the day wears on. Flash flood warning continues for parts of Los Angeles County. We're mainly concerned about the higher elevations north of LA, but all the way back to Malibu and just east of Oxnard. And then certainly the areas of greater concern are the San Fernando Valley, the San Gabriel Mountains, and then areas of the upper deserts here like Lancaster, Palmdale, and Vincent. One thing that I don't think a lot of people consider is that when you have all this rain hitting these mountains, and some of these places have picked up a foot of rain so far, that the rivers that flow down from the mountains into the lower elevations are going to fill up quickly. So while it may not look like a bad situation in LA proper, all the rivers like the LA River are going to continue to swell here, and we're going to see major problems in the coming days due to that. So please take this seriously. Move immediately to higher ground if you are in a burn scar area, if you are near the rivers. You're not going to have a lot of time to act today. So I don't think 7 million people are going to get flooded out, but certainly some will. So certainly take these alerts seriously. We also have a flash flood warning here for portions of San Bernardino, Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario, here in the Inland Empire, around the I-15 corridor east of Ontario, and as far east on I-10 as Yucaipa. And if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. But over 1 million people in this flash flood warning. Even though the heaviest of rains have now dwindled, we continue to have water flowing quickly down through the canyons and rivers, and that's going to cause major issues. Let me come back to that in a minute. Wind speeds yesterday in San Diego County got as high as 84 miles per hour at Big Black Mountain. So we did see hurricane force wind gusts over the higher elevations. Even the lower elevations, though, I-15 here did see winds of 40 to 50 miles per hour. The Santa Ana Mountains had winds to 65 miles per hour. Laguna Beach, 61 miles per hour. Just east of the San Diego Freeway, 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts in the Camp Pendleton area. So definitely some strong winds being reported in parts of Southern California. And then over the Inland Empire, 79 miles per hour just to the east of Yucaipa, 69 miles per hour just northeast of Riverside. When you get up into the San Gabriels, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts. And even the deserts, the San Bernardino Mountains, brought you some 40 to 50 mile per hour winds as that wind came up and over the mountains. So excuse me, if you are in California, this is certainly a rare occurrence, and one we hope we don't see anytime soon again. Here's a look at rainfall totals at their peak last night in the LA area. We did see over 1 to 2 inch per hour rainfall totals. In 2 hours, over 1.5 inches, so about 3 inches per hour, even 4 inches per hour fell in the Simi Hills area. Thousand Oaks had 1.5 inches per hour. Santa Monica Mountains had 1 to 2 inches per hour. So north and west of LA, we had rain rates that were over 3 inches per hour during the height of this storm yesterday evening. So I realized when I did my video yesterday morning, a lot of you were saying, well, it's just sprinkling out here, no big deal. Well, that's because the storm hadn't gotten to you yet. But obviously last night things were at their worst. And fortunately, those rain rates are now coming to an end. So we're done with the West. I'm not even going to talk about you guys anytime soon because I already am seeing the comments coming through. I'm not going to even address them. I don't have time for that. Let's talk about the Atlantic, though. We've got 3 tropical storms. Emily, which is not a threat to land. Franklin, which is going to be a threat to Hispaniola here in the next couple of days. And I guess the National Hurricane Center was bored last night and decided to upgrade Gert in the middle of the night at 1 in the morning to a tropical storm. This was the depression that was supposed to be dead at this point. Well, it somehow managed to survive, and we got another name out of it, but it's probably going to be dying soon. Now, we've got another area that has a 70% chance of development into a tropical depression or storm. In my opinion, we should already have a tropical storm watch out for a potential tropical cyclone. I guess they're too busy naming Gert to worry about this one, but come on, people in Miami, y'all need to do a better job. And yes, I am calling you out, but this is going to develop pretty quickly, in my opinion, tonight into tomorrow morning. And it may not be a named storm until it gets to within a couple of hours of landfall as a tropical storm. If you're in South Texas, not going to freak you out here. You actually do need this rainfall, but do be prepared for some stronger wind. And I'm going to talk about you here in a little bit more. The next name on the list is Harold, and that's probably going to be this one. Afterwards, we've got another disturbance, AL92, which is moving just past the Cabo Verde Islands here off the African coast. And as we get to about the second half of this week, we will likely have a tropical storm, Idalia, Idalia. Sounds like a mix of Ida and Leah, but Idalia. And that is not going to be a threat to land, but could be a more powerful storm here by next weekend. It's going to follow Emily here. So 5 systems on the map here, most likely in the next couple of days. Let's talk about the Gulf system first. You can see we still don't have very well-defined low-level circulation. Wind directions are not quite there yet. We have the makings of what could be a storm that very quickly wraps itself up here later tonight into tomorrow. We do have an anticyclone that's high pressure aloft, which is going to lead to favorable conditions for development by the time this thing moves into the Western Gulf. But right now, still dealing with the organizational phase where the low-level center is not that well defined. and things have not lined up yet. So this is going to rally in the ninth inning, in my opinion, and become a tropical storm before landfall, and may actually look healthiest after landfall here tomorrow morning over deep South Texas, probably somewhere between Port Mansfield and South Padre Island and Brownsville and Matamoros. Somewhere here on the lower Texas coast is likely going to have that landfall point. But anyway, let's take a look at the infrared, and you can see we just don't have enough organization yet. We may have tropical storm force winds in some of these thunderstorms, but we don't have an organized low-level center just yet. So that's why we don't have advisories coming from the National Hurricane Center. However, this thing's going to spin up pretty quickly from what I'm seeing on the models. And in my opinion, it already needs to be a potential tropical cyclone. So maybe we'll get that later today. Models are in great agreement that this is coming into South Texas here tomorrow morning. This was the 1 a.m. Central model, so a little bit more than 30 hours from then. So probably in the morning on Tuesday, and then the remains go across northeast Mexico and fall apart here in Arizona along the periphery of this ridge of high pressure. But look at the forecast here in 24 hours. More models than not show tropical storm strength. The others show tropical depression strength. So when we get into the afternoon hours and early evening, if we get a low-level center, this thing may already be a tropical storm. So the Hurricane Center, in my opinion, needs to get off their butts and call this a potential tropical cyclone and issue tropical storm warnings, because that's exactly what we're going to be dealing with here. It's going to be a short-lived storm. It'll be weakening after landfall, but it is going to cause some impacts here. Here's a look at the HAFS tropical model, and you can see surface pressures should be lowering here this evening, perhaps even a 55-mile-per-hour tropical storm. This model can sometimes over forecast that, so maybe it's 45, but the pressure's dropped. And this model shows it getting down into the lower 990s, even into the upper 980s as a stronger tropical storm. In my opinion, that's probably being over forecast. But this is 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, and it's already making landfall here near Port Isabel and Port Mansfield, and then moving across the Rio Grande Valley and weakening tomorrow morning, and already a remnant low tomorrow afternoon, somewhere near Zapata and Laredo, Texas here. And this will bring a lot of rain into the mountains here of northeastern Mexico, perhaps some devastating flooding for some communities, but beneficial rain for South Texas. So this is going to be a short-lived storm, but it is one that's going to get its act together right before landfall. Here's a look at the forecast radar. And as we get into the afternoon, we'll see showers and storms just off the coast. A few bands could make their way inland. But really, it's going to be about 10 or 11 o'clock before we see any significant rain moving onto the Texas coast. And then later on tonight and overnight, we'll start to see the massive rain moving in. We could see a few isolated tornadoes and some gusty winds as we get to about 3 or 4 in the morning. The meat of the rain is going to be moving into places like Corpus Christi here around 6 or 7 a.m. up to about Palacios and Victoria here early tomorrow. But notice in the Houston area, it looks like you're going to avoid most of this rain, unfortunately. We will have more cloud deck, so we're probably not looking at 108 degrees at Houston tomorrow. Maybe it's only 99 or 100. The humidity actually gets kicked up a little bit here, but I don't think we're going to see much more rain once we get to Lake Jackson, Galveston, and areas on northward. Looks like our low will be weakening by the time it moves in around lunchtime tomorrow, moving away from the Rio Grande Valley, and the heaviest rain now heads towards Laredo and halfway up to San Antonio in the afternoon. We'll still have a few bands of showers and storms on the coastal sections late in the day tomorrow, but this will be moving away to the west pretty quickly here by tomorrow evening, and just a few remnant showers tomorrow night. So this is mainly a 12-hour event from overnight tonight to about early afternoon tomorrow, and then things are going to be dying down and moving away after that. Here's a look at total rainfall totals. And you can see we are going to get some beneficial rain here in deep South Texas, maybe as much as 5 or 6 inches in Laredo. This could cause some localized flooding as well. I don't think it's going to look like California did, but certainly some flooding will be possible. 2 to 4 inches in the Corpus Christi area. Even though landfall is down here, most of that rain is going to be on the north side of the circulation. So even places like Brownsville and Weslaco and Harlingen probably aren't even going to see more than an inch of rain, but we'll take every drop we can, because it is very hot and dry down here. Farther north, Lake Jackson, we may have half an inch of rain. Victoria may see close to an inch. Palacios around an inch. But you get up to Houston and San Antonio, the I-10 corridor, doesn't look like we're going to see little to anything at that point. Here's a look at projected wind gusts, and you'll see strong winds off the coast today. And then winds will start moving into coastal sections here. This is at 3 in the morning tomorrow. This is up to 5 in the morning, and it looks like most of our stronger winds are going to be in the morning hours. This is why I believe we need to have a tropical storm warning, because we've got less than 24 hours before potential tropical storm wind gusts. And you'll see over the waters, there's some water spouts or some stronger storms being forecast, maybe at max wind gusts of 86. But overall, we're looking at wind gusts around 50 to 55 miles per hour tomorrow morning. These will move inland. We could see gusts as high as 60 miles per hour, tracking across parts of deep South Texas. Notice how the Rio Grande Valley kind of avoids most of the stronger wind. But even Laredo could see a wind gust over 40 or even 50 miles per hour, maybe even 60 miles per hour tomorrow afternoon. So there could be some power outages here in this part of South Texas, certainly some heavy rainfall. Be prepared for that, but really this is not going to be a major storm for these areas. Now, looking farther to the south, we do have some storms gathering strength on the Pacific side of Central America, and we have to keep an eye on this system here as it may potentially develop or spit out another low pressure system. Some models pull that moisture into the Gulf and Caribbean next week, but again, that's way off. We do have Tropical Storm Franklin, which is a pretty well-defined system, but it is dealing with this westerly wind shear, and as a result, it's not really strengthening very quickly, but it is growing in size. And if you're in Puerto Rico and in the islands, you are still dealing with some nasty rain. Right now, dry in Hispaniola, but this is going to be a problem for Haiti and Dominican Republic here in the coming days. Once we get east, we do have Tropical Storm Gert. Let me pull up I'm going to annotate this for you guys, and I will show you. This is Gert right here. Somehow she got herself a name. This is the low-level center right here. You can almost see the low cloud swirl, and it's dealing with the circulation of Franklin, creating some wind shear over the top of it, but apparently not enough wind shear to kill off Gert. So this is Franklin. This is Gert, the G storm. This right here is Emily, the E storm. And that is not a threat to land. In fact, Emily is already exposed and naked in its center. All the storms are off to the north. That is going to head this way and continue to get wind shear off this trough that's driving Franklin. So that's going to kill off that convection. And then, looking at the eastern Atlantic, we ain't done yet. Let me find where I am. This is the next area to watch. So here is Emily. Let me get my pen back. This is Emily right here. And then here's the next area that we're keeping an eye on. This is 92L. And this one will likely get the name Idalia, the I storm. Probably going to take a few days. We need to get Emily out of the way, which she will. This storm's going to follow Emily, almost the exact same track. And wind shear is expected to lighten some. So by the time this system gets out into the area where Emily is now, that wind shear will be lighter than it is. So this storm does have a good shot at developing into a tropical storm, and some models say even a hurricane. And oh, by the way, there's another wave that we're going to have to keep an eye on. That is projected to move off the coast here towards the middle and latter parts of this week, and that could be our J storm, Jose, by this time next week. So it is very busy for this time of the year, even in the Atlantic. Here's a look at our ensembles. This right here is Franklin. This is Gert. This is Emily. This is not a name system. It's non-tropical. This is likely going to be Idalia, and this is likely going to be Harold. Let me move these forward so you can see the plots. Harold's going to make landfall here tomorrow morning. Franklin's going to continue drifting to the west, staying south of Hispaniola. Gert, if she's even still around, will be weakening here just east of the islands. Emily's already gone, so say goodbye to Emily tomorrow. When I do this video, I don't think we're talking about her anymore. And this will be our next potential depression here in a couple of days, which I think will be Idalia. Now, fast forward into Wednesday, and this is what's left of what I think will be Harold, already falling apart over Mexico. We are going to keep an eye here on the Pacific side of Central America. This is Franklin, and you can see some ensembles take it south of Jamaica. Others start to turn it towards Haiti. This is Gert and starting to fall apart. Emily's done. And then here's what I think will be Idalia by the end of this week. Fast forward a little bit more, and you can see the remains of Emily may try to make a comeback here late in the week, so we may have a resurgence. Gert's already gone. Franklin now moving either across Haiti or eastern Cuba, with a few ensembles still trying to go a little farther west. And then we're going to be watching for low pressure development over northwestern Caribbean near Belize towards the end of the week. This will be probably Idalia. This is already the next system coming off the African coast Thursday into Friday. Fast forward a little bit more. This is now Friday night, and we've got quite a bit of spread in the models, but most of them turning Franklin to the northeast and strengthening Franklin. We see some 950s and 960s, so potentially a hurricane. This is going to be Idalia, also potentially a hurricane on some of these ensembles, and Jose, or a tropical depression at this point. We are going to have to keep an eye on what's spinning out of this gyre here in Central America. There are a few models that show a low-end tropical storm here by next weekend. And then as we get on into this time next week, this is next Monday, 12Z, we more than likely will have a hurricane from Franklin here with Bermuda right in the middle of this cluster. So Bermuda, you need to watch. There are some ensembles that turn this closer to the East Coast. I don't think that's the play at this point, but something I think we need to watch, and I'll talk about why that is. We also have potentially a developing system here moving into the southern Gulf of Mexico next week. This is Idalia and likely to stay out of trouble here over the open lanes of the central Atlantic. And then behind it, what may be Jose is already weakening, I think, and even turning away. So a very busy map, but overall, the areas of greatest concern are Franklin to Bermuda and Hispaniola, and maybe Nova Scotia and New England. And then we have to keep an eye on the Eastern Gulf next week for potentially our next system. And if you follow the progression this year, it actually makes sense. We had a storm in the Indian Ocean in March that hit Madagascar. Then we had a storm near India in May. We also had storms in May, June, and July hitting Japan and the Philippines. And then we had a storm in July hitting Hawaii, and now a storm in August hitting California and the Baja California. And if you follow that MJO as it pulses across into September, that now puts Florida at risk. So it's a progression from Indian Ocean, Western Pacific, Central Pacific, Eastern Pacific, and now we're looking at the Eastern Gulf, Florida, and areas farther to the east. If you think about it there, that actually makes some sense if you follow teleconnections. Anyway, here's a look at the GFS model, and you can see very quickly our system ramps up and moves inland. It'll look best after landfall. Here's Franklin. The GFS takes it over Dominican Republic. The Euro, by the way, is farther west. You can see Franklin turns this way, and then ridge of high pressure rebuilds, and it starts to curve back to the northwest. This is Bermuda right here, so it actually shows this system coming between Bermuda and the Outer Banks, and then turning northeastward. This, by the way, would be Idalia. It's also developing a hurricane, but following a track much farther to the east of Franklin, so not a threat to land. And then we're going to have to keep an eye on things around Florida. You can see this impulse of moisture. The GFS not showing development on the 0Z run, and taking a look at the run after it, it does have some lower pressures in here, but not yet developing it. But it does also take Franklin and make landfall near Bermuda here next weekend. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. Looking farther off to the north on the GFS model, you can see our big area of high pressure, lots of dry air. That's what these brown colors are over the northeast. As Franklin comes up into this drier air, you'll see there's very dry air on the west side. So this system's going to be struggling and fighting some wind shear and dry air, but it is coming up close to Maine and close to the Gulf of Maine and Nova Scotia here next Tuesday. Even though dry air gets ingested into it, it still could have some strong winds on the east side. So we definitely have to keep an eye on this system, even though it's still a week away from potential landfall. And then we've got to keep an eye on things near Florida here as we get into Labor Day weekend. But again, lots of uncertainty at that point. Here's a look at the European, and it takes Franklin farther off to the south and west with landfall near the southwest tip of Haiti here on Wednesday, and then redevelopment near the Turks and Caicos on Thursday and Friday. And this does not take Franklin and strengthen it like the GFS does, but it is coming farther west and well west of Bermuda, according to the European model. So we have to keep an eye on that. Oh, by the way, the European showing some development in the Gulf here by later next week. And then the Canadian model is the one that actually I think is going to do a better job, believe it or not. And that shows Tropical Storm Franklin coming up through the southwest tip of Haiti or over eastern Cuba next Wednesday, or this Wednesday night and Thursday morning, then developing into a hurricane by the weekend and taking the storm, unfortunately, a lot closer to the Outer Banks here early next week. It will recurve, but we have to watch it. And then, oh, by the way, we've got a system to keep an eye on in the Gulf next week, which may take aim at Florida. Here's a look at the Canadian model, and you can see Hurricane Franklin at this point. It is recurving away from the northeast, but close enough. and then making landfall in Nova Scotia next Wednesday and Thursday, and then keeping an eye on this system, which could come across Florida here by next Wednesday and Thursday. Back out across Hurricane Alley, we see Franklin, we see Gert, we see what will be the remains of Emily here very soon, and then what should be Idalia here in a couple of days. And the Canadian still keeps Gert together as a tropical depression. Don't know why, but somehow shows her surviving a little bit longer here. Not a threat to land, though. And then here is Idalia, which will be falling apart, according to the Canadian. And then Jose actually develops into a hurricane here in about 9 to 10 days. And another system coming off after that, that would be our K or L storm, potentially. European over Hurricane Alley, weaker with these systems, as you can see, not showing the kind of development the Canadian is, but still showing the waves developing as they come through. And the GFS model kind of in between everything. Hurricane Franklin moving east as it feels this approaching trough. And then after that trough lifts out, turning out back to the northwest towards Bermuda. Here would be Idalia as a hurricane as well. Then gradual development of what should be Jose by Labor Day weekend. All right, so let's look at Gert real fast. And I don't even know why I'm even talking about her, but she's out there. Here's the Leeward Islands over in here. The circulation center is actually right here. You can kind of see some low-level clouds kind of circulating around. All the storm developments on the east side. There's enough wind here to create tropical storm force winds, but it's not a healthy storm. It will likely get sheared to death here. And you can see being predicted to be a remnant low by this time tomorrow. Here's the model guidance, a little bit of a loop, and then turning north and not threatening any land. Here's a look at Tropical Storm Emily. Pretty good circulation here, but wind shear out of the southwest is killing everything off. And all the storms are well off to the north and east of the storm center. So it will be a remnant low here. It may try to redevelop at the end of the week, but over the north central Atlantic should not be a threat to land, even staying east of Newfoundland. And then we get to Franklin, and that is one that's more concerning. It is growing in size. Thunderstorm activity regenerating here despite some wind shear. This is Hispaniola right here. I need to stop this loop because it's driving me nuts here. Go back one. But anyway, this is Franklin, and the center is down in here, well south of the Dominican Republic. This is Haiti. And the forecast challenges with this are, where does the center end up going? Let me pull up my cursor to show you guys. So the center is actually kind of in here, but we've got models that take the storm this way towards the Dominican Republic, very near the tip here. We've got other models that take it this way into an area that would be more favorable for Franklin, because you have mountains over here in Hispaniola. Over here on the western tip of Haiti, you really don't have those mountains. You do have mountains in here, but this would allow the center of the circulation to avoid going over mountains and weakening much. And so a track farther west is going to be more detrimental in the longer term. It'll also be very bad for Haiti. So my thoughts and prayers are with everybody in Haiti as well as Dominican Republic at this point. Landfall could be as soon as Wednesday night, Thursday morning. You can see we've got the official forecast going over Dominican Republic, and Haiti is not even in the window, but there's a chance this could shift more to the west. And if it does so, we could even see hurricane watches for parts of Haiti and tropical storm watches for parts of Cuba and even eastern Jamaica. It is projected to strengthen after it crosses Hispaniola, but again, depending on where it comes through Hispaniola, if it even survives, this could be slower and could be weaker at this point. But there is a chance for it to strengthen by next weekend south of Bermuda. So we have to keep an eye. You can see it's starting to turn back in this direction, and how far back it turns is still very much up for grabs. Here are the models, and you can see UK Met hits Cuba. The Canadian goes over Haiti. Most of the other models go over Dominican Republic in about 2 days or so. And then we see a turn back towards the north and west. This is Bermuda right here. So we see many models threatening Bermuda by the time we get to Friday night and Saturday. Some ensembles coming back close to North Carolina, but that trough that moves into the east will probably kick the system out to the north and east. How far back it turns is still a critical point. But we likely see this going somewhere between the Outer Banks and Bermuda, and then turning back and affecting Nova Scotia, maybe Newfoundland, maybe New Brunswick, and maybe far down east Maine as well. A lot of models going hurricane intensity here by the time we get to the weekend, maybe a category 1 or 2, still some that keep it as a tropical storm. And then let's talk about our next system to keep an eye on here. This would be Idalia. And right now, not enough of a closed circulation to call this a tropical depression. But it will likely have a chance to strengthen here in a few days as it moves west-northwest and does not threaten any land. Probably a tropical storm, could even be a hurricane by the weekend. And let's take a look here at the U.S. And we can see a big area of high pressure continuing to bring very hot conditions to the center of the country. We do have a trough pushing through the northeast, so it is staying cooler in New England. And here's all the moisture coming up from the remains of Hilary. Here's the upper low near the Bay Area, pulling moisture all the way up into Idaho, Washington, and Montana. Speaking of that high, here were heat indices yesterday afternoon, 120 around Fort Smith, 121 around Topeka, Kansas, 118 in St. Louis. And unfortunately, today's heat does not look like it's going to let up any. We've got maximum highs over 110 in parts of Texas and Kansas, getting hotter as well in the Carolinas, upper 90s for today. Tomorrow is going to heat up across Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, triple-digit heat. Heat indices could get as high as 130 degrees, where we have more moisture in the ground in the Corn Belt here. So keep an eye on your relatives that may be older in this region. Wednesday, cooler air comes down into the mid-Atlantic states, and we're down into the 80s in Raleigh, and I'm very much going to enjoy that personally. Unfortunately, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas, you do not get that cold front. Chicago, in fact, and Western Illinois could get up to triple-digit heat either Wednesday or Thursday. It's going to be very close in Chicago, but the western suburbs, I do think, will hit 100 by Thursday afternoon. Friday, it does cool off. We've got a front dropping down through the Great Lakes. Still hot, though, in the Ohio River Valley, close to 100 in many locations. And then next weekend, we are still very hot over the Deep South, but comfortable across the Great Lakes and Northeast, both on Saturday and Sunday. So it has not been a hot summer in the Northeast, and you can see why. Every time it tries to get hot, we've got a front that drops down from Canada, and that knocks the temperatures back down. Hope you all have a wonderful day today. If you are joining me for the first time, or if you've been watching the videos, please consider subscribing and sharing with your friends. My aim is to grow this channel to about 10,000 followers here by the end of this year. I think with the way things are going in the tropics, and then with El Nino and a busy winter coming up, that will certainly happen. I appreciate your time, but as much as I want to thank you for your time, I want to give all my thanks and all the glory to God. And accidentally bumped a button here, stopped my video, but giving all the glory here, who has called me to be a meteorologist, but has also commissioned me to share the good news with everybody, the gospel, and that is that Jesus is coming and that we are blessed to be able to accept Christ as our Savior. We have eternal life. That is a gift given to us, grace extended unto us. And David says in Psalm 103, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases, who redeemeth thy life from destruction, who crowneth thee with loving kindness and tender mercies, who satisfieth thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagles." Do you ever feel like you're just getting yourself beat up, that you're sick, that you're sinful, that your life is just meaningless? Well, go back and read this verse. I think you'll see that there is a light at the end of that dark tunnel that maybe you are going through. We're all going through something, I believe. I've had some mental health challenges, just to be upfront with you guys. However, every time I feel like I can't do it all, I go to God in prayer and I bless the Lord. I say, thank you, Lord, because all this is not going to matter. We're only given so much time on earth. What matters is what happens in our eternal life, and that's that our lives are redeemed, that we are made new, and we are crowned with loving kindness and tender mercy coming from God, and that we are young again, renewed like eagles. Isaiah 40:31 talks about that. Our mouth is satisfied with good things. I mean, for me, I know I've had my words sometimes get mangled and slipped, and I stumble over words, and I just realize that, you know what, it's okay, because God is there with me, and he will give me a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. And those chances are from Jesus Christ, our Savior, who is the great Redeemer. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Please be safe out there out west, and we'll chat again in the morning. God bless you.